training at Harvard and Stanford. He served as professor of plastic surgery at Dartmouth Medical School throughout his career. Then facing open heart surgery and family issues, he became reconnected with his former Graceland sweetheart, Sherry, with whom he moved back to Lamoni in 1997, looking for new things to do. This talk will describe one of them.
Thank you, Linda. This whole idea of the Lamoni Bike Trail was Pam Kleinfelder's dream. As you know, Pam was the wife of the then president of Graceland, David Kleinfelder, and she was determined that we needed to take that abandoned railway from the Burlington and Northern Railroad and put a trail on top of it. And she organized a group called 25 people together, and would have several meetings to try to plan how we were going to go about doing this. And we took notes at the meeting, we had minutes, we had sign-in sheets, which turned out to be very valuable later on when it came time to do the grant work. But her idea, next slide, her idea was to connect somehow the Welcome Center with Graceland with a trail. And this was her dream, and this is what she was determined to do. She was our den mother and our guidance all the way through. Would give us a kick in the pants when we slowed down on it. Now, fortunately, next slide, we got a lucky break. And that was the fact that after I had arrived here, I joined the Decatur County Rotary Club, which met in Leon. It's a family tradition with the Rotary. And I was having a chat with Loring Miller, who was a member of the club, and talking about the trail. And he said, trail, we built ourselves a wonderful trail up here in Leon. We bought a slip form paver from Florida, and we were able to do it all by ourselves. And he said, you could probably rent that from the city of Leon and build this trail. Next slide. Well, this is the idea of a slip form paver. It is, you don't have the forms out here of metal or wood along the side. Instead, you have a paver which lays a ribbon because it is sitting on the wheels or whatever are sitting on the edge where it is so nicely graded. So that was the that particular plan. Now, our own slip form paver was not like that. The next slide will show that. There it is. It now sits underneath the siren of Lamoni and collects junk. But this yellow thing was what we used to build that entire trail. This is the front end, and this is where the cement truck would pull it along, and the chute would go into this box here, and it would slide right along and would, that's where the trail came out the other side. We watched the video. It was so smooth watching that thing just pull down and leave that ribbon of concrete right behind it. Next slide. Okay, I found a grant. It was a state recreational trails grant that was, we were able to do a match with. For the first 3.2 miles, and it would have covered that entire area that I showed you before. We had a 75% grant of $261,000. Graceland threw in 50, and then we got other grants and pledges that made it up to about $350,000. We submitted that. There were 23 competitive grants, and 2 were fully funded, and ours was one of the 2. The other one, I think, was Cedar Rapids. But the reason it was successful was because we were dealing with a very low cost, and because we had all of that planning material and all of the records and the signatures and so forth, which indicated that we had undergone a very extensive planning process, and that we can attribute to Pam Kleinfelder. Okay, next slide. This is what we had to deal with. We had several issues here that had to be dealt with. Number one, we had to figure out how to get from the Welcome Center down to the abandoned rail corridor. Number two, there was a trestle sitting here. Number three was the fact that when Graceland took a look at the quality of that we would be able to produce, they decided they had to build their own trail because they wanted to have it of the quality that Graceland would be. And the fourth one was that little area right there. In fact, there was a very solid regulation from Graceland's planning and building and grounds that nothing would be developed next to Home Pond, or next to the Founder's Lake. It was to be pristine and nothing was to go close to there. Well, we wanted to go closer there because we thought it would be a real nice scene if we were close. And it doesn't hurt when the woman that goes to bed with the president of the college every night decides that those rules don't apply. And so we were able to get it to go right along the edge of the trail. Now, the big problem that we ran onto was over here next slide. There was a property owner there who did not want the trail going directly south, which is what we wanted to do. And he insisted that instead of the going near his property and near his favorite duck pond, he wanted us to go all the way around the lagoons in the city and then head on south to get there. Now, of course, next slide. This is, of course, what people would see when they got there. This is the tourist introduction to Lamoni. Here is our wastewater treatment. We were worried about that, but still we had to do it. Now go backwards one, if you would. There we go. This is north up here. This is west. And here are the two lagoons. If you've been out there, you know what it is I'm talking about. And come down here, and this is a dam. And the dam on this side is the duck pond. The owner was very fond of that duck pond, and he was going to protect that. And he wasn't going to let us go across his dam in order to get to the on down to the rail bed. Well, it turns out the survey showed that about a third of the dam was actually owned by the next owner. And we walked the trail with the owner, the second owner, and he said he thought it was a pretty good idea to build a trail. And we said, well, we've been told that we can't do that. He said, well, I can fix that. He said, I'll just take my bulldozer and take out my third of the dam. Of course, then the duck pond would all have gone down there. So that it was a very difficult conversation next, but we managed to get the permission to go across that dam. But he demanded that we put up a very tall chain link fence there in order to protect the duck pond and not have people going down into it. Now, if you get to the next slide.
Hey, give me 1 second. I'm going to try something. So it's going to go bad for
a moment. Have to go up 2. Move forward 1 and then one more.
Just a moment. I'm going to try something.
Okay.
If we can fix this problem, then we're a little bit happy. It has to be in one, Diane. You have to take the other one out and put that one in. Now, because it's a Mac and the gods are happy with me today, it's going to come back up.
Okay. As here, page
Okay,
36.
go forward
Yeah,
2 slides.
okay. There we go. Now this is the fourth one.
Okay.
Fourth obstacle. It was a trestle, probably built in the late 18th century. It's a very tall. It's 160 foot long. The railroad had taken the ties off, so that what we had was a part tie, air, tie, air, tie, air. It's very tall. It's 160 foot long, and people with acrophobia like myself are not comfortable working up there. But we had the engineers, Veenstra and Kim, who were our master engineers of the entire project, draw up a way that we could work around that. And the next slide shows how that would work. These are, this is the ties are down here. And every fourth tie, we're supposed to put in a crossbar that goes all the way across the trail, across the trestle. And they had an upright which would hold the slats, and then these flying buttresses come down to keep them in their place. Now you've got all kinds of layers here. Here are the ties, Then we had to add on the verticals, or the transverse ones going vertically along the trail. And then on top of that are these individual slots going across. A very complicated method to build this trail. We understand that there was a bit of laughter in Ames at the Iowa DOT that a volunteer crew could put something together like this. But Orville Hiles, who was our facilitator and who could sell ice bags to Eskimos and do anything, get anybody to do anything, went to his neighbor, Doyle Boffman, who had a very, very good work shed with carpentry and saws and all that kind of stuff. And he said, Doyle, we got a little project and we would like you to help us if you could do that in your work shed. We need to have a few of these superstructures built up and wonder if you could do that for us. Doyle said, well, sure, bring them on by. Well, turns out you put one of these in every 4 ties, railroad ties. You needed 26 of these things to go across. So the first year of that 3-year grant was spent planning. The second year was spent building that trestle, and it was only the third year that we were able to get to paving. But we did, in fact, complete that trail. The next slide will show that.
Yeah.
And it got done, and we were able to proceed with the project. Now, when you see the next slide, you'll see the completed trail. And yeah, one more. Yeah, this is a completed trail looking west. This is the east end of the trail. When I look at this, all I can remember was a horrible day here, because this was where we started the paving. This was the next summer. It was about 80 degrees that day, and we had 20 of us out there volunteering with trowels and everything. And we brought that slip form paver up there and set it down and started to work, and it was awful. It was just awful. It was not like the video showed with this little ribbon coming along. And in fact, the cement was way too dry. So it started out, we poured some, and it was all lumpy, and we couldn't move the thing. And we ended up throwing some in the side, and finally got it to work a little bit. We had 2 trucks that day, but the second one had to dump its load because it was hardening up there. It was a terrible day. At the end of the day, we were all sweaty. We had, helping us there was the head of the Iowa Ready-Made Trail Mix Company or Association. And at the end of the day, we had paved 40 feet. We thought this project was over. Everybody was just about as upset as it was possible to be. Now, when we get the next slide up, it will show us the method that we use. There is that yellow slip form paver. We're starting, this is showing where we're starting from a previous day. And here's the vibrators that make it that will sort of cure the cement as it's poured. The cement truck is up here, and Doyle Boffman is guiding the chute right down into the box, and it pull forward. He found out the first day that it doesn't work very well with the cement truck, because it really isn't strong enough and be able to be straight enough to be able to pull it adequately. If there is one group in the country that hates bike trails, it's farmers. And the Farm Bureau just can't stand having bike trails because they go close to, across hayfields and all kinds of things, and they hate them. But it so happens that this is Decatur County, and the president of the Decatur County happened to be Leon Kessel, and he took his biggest tractor, and he would go and back up behind or in front of the cement truck, put the cement truck in neutral, attach that there, and then he would very easily and very accurately march that trail forward with his. That's a little different from a lot of counties, but Leon was very willing to do that. Well, that isn't enough just to lay the trail. That next slide shows what has to go on beyond that. You have to make this thing work, the surface to be perfect. This big gadget right here is called a bull float. And you lift it up, put it onto the far side, and then you drag it back across. It can be a mess if you're not doing it right. But for some reason, the shortest guy on the work crew, Howard Booth, had in fact had some experience somehow doing the bull float. And so Howard was the one who would lift it up, put it across, and then drag that across and move on down to finish up the surface of the trail. And of course, the rest of us would be out there with trowels and so forth, getting the edge right and the edge perfect. You look beyond that, you see that structure. That's a coarse carpet. And Orville Hiles could go to the company to make those and talk them into giving us those free. And anyway, people on either side would then pull that along in order to put some texture into the trail, because a completely smooth trail is not kind to bicyclists and cars, and bicyclists and walkers, especially when it gets wet. So that provides the texture so that you don't slip and slide on that trail. And then the one more thing you have to do is to cut across it. You have to make cuts that every so many feet in order to make sure that when it buckles where you want to buckle and not where Mother Nature wants it to buckle. And then finally, you have to be able to put in a shoulder here. And that, fortunately, we had Gene Tabor, who happened to own a dump trailer that was dumped to the side. And he would come along, he would go to the beginning of the trail, fill that large trailer full of dirt, and then he'd pull it on out there and dump it in, and the rest of us would go along with rakes and so forth and smooth down. So we had a trailer. So if you didn't have that, you'd come off the bicycle and you'd be in a mess. Next slide. Okay, there was a little incident that happened a couple, 3 years after that. Out by where those lagoons were, it so happens that a guy pulling an 18-wheeler had stopped off at the Southern Iowa building, and he was trying to get back onto the interstate, and he took the wrong turn. So he came all the way down, and he got onto the bike trail, past two signs that said no motorized vehicles. I'm not sure he could read either one of them. But at any rate, he turned around the corner and got stuck because it was such a sharp curve, and he left that mess sitting right there. And if you notice, we tried to pull him out, the tow truck was trying to be braced there, and it didn't work well. But at any rate, he left a mess. We tried doing some lawsuits, couldn't find out really who the real owner was, but we had to patch that piece up. Next slide. So we came up after 4 years. The first one was at 2000. It's kind of like writing a book. You can't write the second one until the memory of the awfulness of writing the first book is done. And so when our memories were sufficiently depleted, we decided we wanted to build one on the east side. And this one, we found a federal grant. Wrote that one for, it's about a $350,000 one, and this was only about 2.06 miles. And the feds liked that because we had the experience, next slide, of having done that. They knew that we were able to build a trail because we had been successful in doing that along with the Graceland Loop. And by the way, Graceland, that was the fourth problem. Graceland decided that our quality was not such that we could, they built their part themselves. I think I mentioned that. But the advantage, another advantage of it was that it was a beautiful route. We walked this with the engineers. It goes over 6 earthen dams, 5 of them protecting Home Pond, and then the other one down here by Liberty Hall. And the fact that we had Liberty Hall in there gave us points on the grant for having a historical piece to it. So they awarded this grant, and we were able to proceed on phase 2. Next slide. Well, we also had this, but if you remember, this piece between the high school and Dairy Cup, there was no trestle there. It had been a trestle before, but it was considered to be an attractive nuisance by the city because kids would get up there, tie air, and either fall down between or fall off and break their neck. So the city took that one down and we had nothing to work with. So I went to the county engineer and I said, we've got a problem. We need a new trestle for our trail. And the head of it thought for a minute and scratched his head and he said, hey, Frank, do we still have that old bridge we took out from the northwestern part of the county? He said, yeah, it's over there and so. Well, it happened to be just the right sort of bridge for this. So they decided they would do it for us. And this was the county engineer's job. You'll see there are 2 sets of triple uprights. Next slide. Here they are, and they had to go down several feet into the earth in order to be able to be stable, and they had to be the right height and so forth. That they had to pile drive them in. Of course, school was on. School was not happy with that because for several days they were pounding these things in and bang, bang, bang over and over again, but they got them right. And they did super. Next slide. They laid the bridge, the existing bridge on top of that, and then they made the accommodations with other steel in order to be able to do what our engineers on this one designed as a much simpler method to put up the side rails. You can see the connectors right there. Before we did that, of course, we had to we had to paint this because it was very, very, very rusty. So we spent several days painting it before we started the rest of it. Next slide. You can see underneath here now, the trail is moving in this direction, and these are these horizontal ones, and much, much, much simpler than the previous trestle that we had to do. So that was completed. Next slide. This is the
Blank screen.
that was the bridge itself. And the next slide will show that not only did we have to do that, but we did, as we did with several others, we built a fence along it. You can see the fence here looking west. And one of our rules was that you had to have if anybody wanted a fence next to the trail, we would, and we built several personal requests in addition to that one with a chain link that was there before. Next slide. Then later on, the Trails Commission, which was formed after we finished the trail, added some really nice additions. This is out by Liberty Hall. This one is here. You'll notice up here, it was declared to be a bird sanctuary, the entire trail. And next slide is they added this one as well. This is a bike repair with all the tools needed in there and a pump to pump those up. Next slide. Okay, we had some other issues. We had some water drainage issues. We had we had to put several tubes underneath in several places on the trail, but this was one that was pre-existing and it had clogged. And there was a tile, the tile was clogged underneath here, so the LMU was able to burrow through there and connect to the existing tile. I have missed a slide. Can you go back to about slide 5? I think that's the one. I wanted to show you the people that were involved in that first part of the trail. As it should be, keep going, we're doing fine.
Those are the first people.
Okay, somehow it's missing. Well, go back to where you were.
I bet it's, hang on, I'll show you which one it was. That one.
It had a picture, it had a listing of all of the people who had worked on the trail, and I wanted to point some of those out.
Well, we'll have to take that up with Jim later.
Okay, well, at any rate, the, we had 26 people that were involved in the first part of that trail. And some of them are quite notable. I mentioned the facilitation capacity of Orville Hiles, and he could go to Hy-Vee and persuade them that we needed some refreshments out there because it was hot and so forth. And Norma Hiles and some of her friends would make the sandwiches and bring out drinks and so forth, so we were able to get through the day. In addition, Doyle Boffman was he was our straw boss. He had built pipelines all across the country, and he knew how to do everything there was in the outdoors. And then I can't forget Dwayne Smith, or Smitty. Some of you knew him as Wiener. But he was the bulldozer, and he was the one who was able to do the grading, and he was just magnificent. If you don't have a smooth grade, and when you pull along, the trail does this. And he was just magnificent in doing the grading on which we would pull the paver along. I can tell you that the bulldozer was to Smitty what Heifetz was to the violin. He was absolutely magnificent. Anyway, here we are at the end of this. Then we had this is completed of section 2. And then we had the DOT man come down from Ames to inspect the trail. And I heard that he was coming, and I wanted to be sure I got out there to Home Pond before he did, because it was important that I show him some things. Next slide. And I found out when I got there that he was standing there shaking his head because this is what he saw at the east end of the trail. That's right by Liberty Hall. Somehow the first creature to use the trail turned out to be either a coyote or a large dog. Next slide. Next slide. And there he was not only unhappy with the dog, but he also, where we had used an instrument that has flat portions and a strut that stuck out there, that in order to cut those designed cuts in the trail. He was unhappy with that because he saw an awful lot of this when somebody had used it when the cement was too soft. And so he went back and wrote a new rule into the bike trail ordinances that said you had to use a saw. You couldn't use one of those things. But he did pay for it. He did accept it, and we finished it. Go ahead, next slide. Okay, another 4 years, so we could forget it again. Here we wanted to connect the two of them together. And this was only going to be 0.4 miles, and I found a grant with the Decatur County Public Health, which was a Safe Walks to School grant. And since this trail went along by the school, we were able to use that funding. We didn't need much because all we had was the cement. They gave us $32,000, and we provided an in-kind match of that. And the next slide will show you the design. It's a little funny color, but at any rate, we had to figure out a route. This was the original route. We were coming down where the phase 2 trail ended there at Elm Street. We wanted to come south on Elm and over and then connect in with the other end by Graceland. Next slide shows we had 2 routes that we were considering. The original one is this one I showed you before in blue. And then we thought probably better that we go alongside City Hall where we would, where the railroad had originally gone. Thought that was much more historic to be able to go where the railroad did. So we wanted to come directly from Elm right down and then connect to the older trail. Well, it turns out that the state didn't agree. Elm Street is the highest point of Main Street. And for some reason, they don't like to put crossings at the highest point. Seems to me that's backwards, but they don't want that. So instead, we had to come along in front of the school, use the sidewalk, come across in here into the parking lot, and then on down past City Hall and connect. Next slide. Well, then we were going to be putting it where sidewalks had been. Well, this is a problem because those have been there for a long time and it's terrible quality, and we had to dig it up. Well, fortunately, we have a guy in Lamoni, had at that time, a guy who loved Lamoni so much he would do anything for it. And good old Jim Young decided he would take his front end loader and take all of that sidewalk out, put it into his truck, which is not kind to a truck, and haul it out to the city farm and dump it. And he did that. We then had Smitty come back with his bulldozer and put it, give us what we needed in order to be able to start. Next slide. But we did not use the slip form paver. We wanted to make sure we had the best quality. So what we did, this was a city-owned paver. We put in the forms. You can see them, they're 2x4s there, that we would drag this across the top. And of course, we only had one guy in town who was strong enough to be able to pull that across there when you've got all that cement there. That was Kurt Shields, and he pulled that thing the full 0.4 miles across all that concrete in order to be able to finish up that part of the trail. You can see here the cement truck dumping it in front, and then Kurt would pull that thing. We did it only with an 8-foot trail. If we tried a 10, Kurt wouldn't be with us anymore. Okay, next slide. Okay, and then finally, later on, several years later, the Trails Commission decided that we needed a bypass to make things safer. It was about 300, 400 feet. I don't know what it was. They hired a private contractor to do that. Next slide. The problem was that people coming off the trail would come down here, and they were on County Road J25 and have to walk along that. And there are a lot of trucks that come over that hill, and it's not a safe route back to town. So what they wanted to do was to put in that bypass that I showed you there in order to be able to make the come right directly into Mulberry Street. Next slide. What they wanted to do was to go across the dam from Home Pond and put a bridge across there. And we looked into the bridge project, and it turns out that the dam itself was of not sufficient quality and stability that it could handle a bridge. So instead, it came from here, and we joined up here and on down Mulberry Street to make it work that way. Can you go back one slide? I forgot to tell you one little incident that happened. It turns out that right here, right at this spot, there happened to be, and we were doing the second part of the trail, there happened to be a shagbark tree of some kind, which is the nesting site for the Indiana bat, which is an endangered species. And we found out about that shagbark tree when somebody notified us in the middle of March. And we had in this, the nesting season for the Indiana bat starts at April 1. So we had to take that tree out. Well, I was going to be out of town, but I described very carefully to Doyle Boffman where that tree was so that we would be able to get it down in time. So otherwise we would not have been able to build the second part. Well, and I described it as accurately as I could. And he went out and took out a tree down here. It turns out this tree was that 100-year-old tree that was wonderful that everybody had sat under to fish in Home Pond. And LMU called because my phone blew off my hook. They were pretty angry with that. And I went back when I got back in town, and we were able to get that tree down in time. Anyway, let's go forward. We built that. That was built straightforward, and we had a completed trail. This one is out on the east end. This is coming across that original trestle. This is the annual Cyanamo bike ride that we held for several years. It stands for Southern Iowa and Northern Missouri bike ride, and we had dozens of riders there for a couple of years. They would start out at the Welcome Center and they come out to Smith Street and turn south and end up going to all the hills down by Canesville and 25 miles or so and come back into town. But it also had one more function, as we discovered one winter. Next slide. Here's Martha Hart and Christopher, and Tom is back there in the background. It's also decent for cross-country skiing if you happen to be into that sort of stuff. Next slide. Okay, this plaque sits out there. It's a big standard. One is at the Welcome Center, one is at Liberty Hall, and it shows this, and it's an inducement for tourism. It shows our Welcome Center and Graceland College, Graceland University, and Liberty Hall, and so forth as an inducement. Next slide. And this is the another example, just to give you some idea of the total area that's involved. Next slide shows the central crew that was the one that was out there every single day and all the heat doing this. And half of us are still there, barely. But you recognize these, of course, Bruce and Doyle Boffman and Don Kearns and Bob Bjorland and Colonel Sanders and Bill McElroy and Tom Freeman. This was sort of the hardcore that was there every single day. Next slide. Well, it turns out that I think it was Michael Morain that realized there was a story here. And he thought he was working for the Register at the time, and he sent down Mike Kylan, who's a really good reporter. And this became the front page of the Des Moines Sunday Register back in September of 2010. This is the electronic portion of it, but when it ran in the paper, it ran most of 3 pages, the way that they spread it out. Trail geezers, they called them, a small crew with heart and a history of heart surgery builds a rec trail in Lamoni, because all those guys you saw in that picture pretty much had their chests cracked, and they built this story around the idea of a bunch of heart survivors building the trail. They got a quote from Tom Morain, saying that if you line those guys up one by one and have them take their shirts off, it would look like the interstate map of the state of Iowa. At any rate, as they pointed out in this thing, ordinarily a trail of that sort would cost $5 million to build. But we in Lamoni built it with volunteers for $700,000. And that was the completion of the trail. I've got this one framed at home. I'm going to put it outside so you'll have a chance to read that if you like. But that is the story of the Lamoni Bike Trail.
Does anybody have any questions? Well, Bill, I don't know if you actually said it, but that piece that connects the trail there by the water plant isn't up on the dam, but it's down below the dam. Yeah, right. So it didn't work across the dam evidently, so it's down below. So there's a road that comes down the hill there, and it meets right where that road was.
We couldn't do it.
Yeah, right. I knew you said that. But yeah, and the question I had on those bridges, are those planks nailed or screwed in, or are they loose?
Sorry?
The planks that are for the bridges, the planks that go across, are those nailed or screwed down tight? Okay.
And they are 4x4s, and it's treated wood so that it doesn't shrink. It's already pretty sharp and treated.
Yeah.
Bill,
4x4s.
Yeah, they're very nice. I mean, I really like it, but sometimes it feels kind of loose, but I wasn't worried about it. I just wondered how they were.
Yeah, well, there was one section that became quite loose, and then Kirk Shields went up there and underneath and pounded some 2x4s along a stretch of them so that they didn't bounce up when you were being landed on. Every time there was a problem that showed up like that, I had a phone call. I was sort of the one who was responsible for all the problems.
Bill, before you all built the trail, obviously there was some kind of cleared area there. I assume they'd taken rails out a long time ago. So what were you actually starting to work on?
Sherry translates, it's very hard to hear in the microphone stuff.
Grace,
Yeah, might as well.
can you hear me?
Yes, I do.
Frank said that since it was a railway trail, were the rails still there? Did you have to remove those or what kind of service?
The
did you have?
rails were all gone. The rails and the ties were all gone from everything, on the trail, except on the trestle, the first trestle. Yes, sir.
Okay, the dog prints on the west end of the trail,
Yes.
that was Bob and Barb Mesley's dog.
The other thing is that, the only mar of the trail specifically is a heart with Bob and Barb's name. It's a state park. So,
Bill, I've got two takes. Number one, I remember being freshly hired by Kelly Everett to work in the development office. And I'm not back in Lamoni 2 months. And he says to us at the end of a workday, tomorrow and the next day, we're not going to be in the office. Bring short pants, a terrible shirt. We're going to work on the Lamoni bike trail. And when I got out there and it was hot, I know that under my breath, I said, I didn't sign up for this.
well, when you look at the crew, slide that we didn't have, showed all the names, all the people that worked on there, this was Graceland summer vacation, and I think this should be in the Guinness World Records as the highest percentage of PhDs ever to work on a bike. On a cement crew. Sterling.
I'm relatively new here. I've only been here a little over 6 years. When I first found the trail, walked end to end, even the bypass part, I have never seen anything like this anywhere else in the world I've been. I am convinced that this is probably the Cadillac of public works assets that you could put in a community. Now, I realize that public works includes things like sewage ponds and water towers and all the rest of that. And I'm very grateful for those utilitarian things. This is spectacular. This, as long as I live from now on, will be the star attraction of the physical layout of Lamoni. Thank you all so very much for providing me with this.
I think it's more of a Kia than a Cadillac.
Linda?
Bill, there's something over 20 yellow markers on the broken parts of the west part of the trail today.
Yeah.
For repairs that are needed. And I checked the number of blocks, and over 300 blocks that need to be repaired that are jeopardizing bike riders and sometimes the walkers as well. We do have a bit of a fund for some repairs this summer, but probably only half of what needs to be done. Any ideas about how to accomplish that?
Well, part of the contract of the first two parts of this were that the city would build the trail and it would maintain it for 20 years. The city has budgetary issues, and they do get out there periodically with some blacktop kind of things that fill in those places that are problems. I don't know what the city's plans are with it. I haven't been involved with the trail since that last third section where we walk up from time to time. If you will notice, that duck pond is very different today because Delta Metals decided that they were going to redo that, and they redesigned the entire thing. It's now much larger than before, and they went through and replaced an enormous amount of the trail out in that area. So it's taken care of up there. I don't know what the plans are. I know the city is concerned about it. There's no road, cement or blacktop that's there forever. They do need work. And every winter it's different. We get new cracks because we get water underneath and it, turns into ice and expands and breaks the trail. That's the way it
We have
goes.
enough time for 2 more questions, Linda and then Jim.
Yes,
Thanks for making it cement. I've been on bike trails that are not cement. Was that always in the beginning? It was gonna be cement, not cinders or something? Was that always the way it was?
now without the mic so I can understand.
Oh, cement. Was it always going to be cement?
It was always cement. We looked at the possibility of blacktop. Blacktop doesn't do well on trails. If you ever ride the trail between Waukee and Perry, the original one, loop with on blacktop, and it's a mess. And the new loop, which is different, is concrete and it's pristine. Blacktop does not do well on iron soil.
Just quick observation, everything on the east side, west side is not on a rail trail. And so it doesn't have the same substructure.
That's correct.
And that's one of the reasons we got the cracks.
That's correct.
My question has to do with, where that ends, that stub or whatever they call it, spur. That almost drops you off where you have to walk over the spillway, which would be kind of dangerous for older folks if it's raining at all. And is that even possible to get over that with someday, or is that?
Get rid of what?
A bridge or something over the spillway, will that ever?
Perhaps.
Good answer. I bet they.
No, it's city council members you mentioned. The spillway is usually dry, and it's especially dry these days.
Yeah.
And then you have to afford to have to do one. Anyway, thank you very much.
That's one more.
No, we're out of time.
The railway track, north of Jim and Serena's house. I mean, there's that angle, just a narrow angle that makes it difficult for farmers. And to put it on the railroad, base would make more sense. But instead it's off the side and there's a long way.
Well, as you go up that hill, it's right beside you, go leaving Second Street, I think it is, and going up past there to the east of their house, there's a rise, and then it cuts in. The reason is that the farmer who has the crop on the other side, or hay or whatever he has, would not give us an easement, and he wanted to make sure that we were at least something like 40 or 50 feet away from his farm, rather than to go onto the rail path, because he was worried about vandalism and people throwing stuff and so forth. So we had to do that one from scratch. Smitty solved it up.